we had. And so now when you're saying we're short and we're running overtime, and it's only been 2 weeks since Solomon's been gone, like I'm not it's not adding up. And so that's why I'm asking for the documentation so we can, because we've been told, we asked how many officers do we have? We're fully staffed. We just brought on 3 part-time officers. Those are the same part-time officers, it sounds like that are working full-time now. With our other
they were
officers.
Working so they can get trained.
Right.
So they were in training.
Right. And our other officers that is rotation. How many officers are we missing? So then that can, we're trying to help. So if you're saying, hey, we're 2 officers short, that is something that needs to come to the mayor. The mayor lets us know so we can say, hey, do we have the budget with JJ? And we need 2 additional officers. But we're not hearing that. We were told that we're fully staffed and we've just brought on 3 part-time people. And I'm not understanding how we in overtime and it's only been 2 weeks. Council, did y'all hear something different than what we heard?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that how many officers do we have now?
Myself included, we have 10.
As of today?
As of today.
And they all work full-time?
Well, no, the people who are still designated part-time are still part-time. The only thing that we have are our part-time officers, our PPOs, our probationary police officers. Yes, sir.
So, I'm kind of having a hard time as well. So, because when you talk about the problem, I didn't hear the problem being not being staffed. I heard the problem being when somebody calls in and somebody else replaces them. So how does the solution that you put forth, because now for me, maybe I'm not processing it right, but it sounds like the problem is still the problem. So if I'm scheduled to work 12 and I still can't come to work, I still have to make the same phone call to call somebody to come cover my shift. So it's not a matter of, now maybe because we have more people, somebody else can cover the shift, but if you're a part-time person, you're still not covering the 12, you recover whatever the part-time rate is, right? So,
And what we're doing right now, and I understand everybody's question, but one of the problems is we're breaking off in the middle of an algebra problem and asking how do we solve this, but we haven't gotten to the sum total. If you guys give me a half a second to kind of walk you through it, I'm sure that you'll probably understand at the conclusion is let me just kind of finish one whole piece, and then you'll understand how this whole scheduling piece goes. Because I'm not trying to cut anybody off, by no means. And I understand it is confusing. Because coming up with this, if I hadn't been doing it for a little while, wasn't easy. And I understand that everybody kind of wants to do it a certain way. If you just give me a second, I'll be more than glad to explain it to you.
okay, so before you explain, let me kind of touch on what my issue with this conversation is.
Sure, absolutely.
So you've been the emergency appointment for 2 weeks, right? We've been investing into the police department for the last, I can speak on the last 5 years minimum, right? And so we've had Chief Solomon, we had Chief Johnson over the last 4 years, and anybody who sits up here can say Chief Solomon was pretty good at what he did. And so here we are 2 weeks from his removal, and you come before the public, right? And you completely blown holes in our police department. You've broadcasted deficiencies. Right? Now, if we were having this conversation in a private setting, maybe my feelings about it would be different. But we sat in front of our public, our community, and like you said about people being vetted. Like we just pretty much told them that the bank is open. If you want to get in the back, sure, you can get back there, instead of it being something that we fixed internally, you being the person, in charge, we have kind of put our police department, because I haven't heard anything positive yet about our police department, and the reality is our police department has been progressing over
Absolutely. Like I started out, it's a tremendous group of people in here, and I'm sorry, Mr. Randall, but you're not going to get a chance to tell me what I'm working with, because those are my brothers in arms. And by no means am I besmirching anything that these guys have done. They are an awesome group of people and you might not like it, and I understand it, and by all means, I tremendously respect what you're saying. But what is happening is we've called the same 1 or 2 guys to come in and fill those spots. And every time there was a deficiency, every time there was a shortage of people, we call the same couple guys. And so they maxed out, and now we have to pay them. Well, that's where the big problem has come in. And I'm saying to you that none of that stuff has changed. We had plenty, we've made it work with one or two guys filling the void all the time.
So my question is, you haven't addressed that issue.
And it's just simply because I got taken off track trying to make sure I answered everybody's question. But if I had been a chance to kind of walk it all through, you would see that we're not.
We've got your example, because I see what they're saying.
Yeah, sure,
The
absolutely.
specific.
Specific?
You've got an example
Mhm.
of an officer who was maxed out at 480.
Absolutely.
You put him off to rule it down, and
Absolutely.
you've been covering the shifts. Say that. They're not getting that.
Gotcha.
The technical part, I got. So see, I know where you're going, but that's what they're
But
saying.
his
They're
original,
saying, what are you doing about that? And that's what you did, so.
but his
tell
original
us.
shift isn't covered as comp time, so.
His original shift, when you say his
So,
original shift,
so you said you put him off work and you're covering his shift.
no,
That's
no.
what the mayor just said.
No, no.
You
No,
put him
okay,
off
well
work and
then,
cover
let
his
me
shift.
correct anything that you're not understanding about it.
I've never been a cop, so this is all about understanding. I'm trying to understand.
And that's fine, and I understand that it is not an easy thing, and I'm trying to make it as transparent and easy, because I've heard you guys talk about transparency through here,
Absolutely.
okay? Yes, we have somebody that is at 480 hours. Anytime he works anything above that 480, he gets paid overtime.
Is that,
Well, that's our go-to guy.
so let's stop at the 480. Is that regular hours, or is that comp time hours?
Well, it builds, the comp time hours build up to a maximum.
Right, so
They-
we're talking
and so they have a
about, so
ceiling.
we're talking about 480 hours of comp time, right?
Yep,
So when I work my regular, 9 to 5 schedule, that doesn't count as comp time.
nah.
Right,
That's
so,
your regular paycheck.
okay, so I'm just making sure I'm following. So the mayor, and you can correct the mayor if he misspoke, he stated that the way you were addressing the comp time is you took said officer out of his shift, and you're covering his shift.
No, that's not what I meant to say. If I did.
Right, so I'm just,
What I'm
so,
saying is, because he actually didn't work it, but that was a go-to guy to cover if you needed to take a doctor's appointment or you called in sick. That person was getting that overtime and had to be paid. that
so
pay
now,
period.
so now, that person is no longer the person, he's working his regular shift, but he's not. That's what I'm saying. The
Somebody still getting overtime.
Right, so the two are still mutually exclusive. Now, if you would have told me we're not calling him to work overtime, we're not calling him to pick up shifts anymore, I would understand that, and if that was the conversation, but what said is, he's not getting the comp time, but then we took him off his shift. Now, I don't even know who the officers are talking about. I'm thinking because we're
You
speaking.
can say Officer A.
Officer A, so you
Officer
said
A.
Officer A has 480 hours of comp time.
Which we need to bring that 480 down so we can use them, because there are always going to be times when he's going to continue to go over, or she's going to continue to go over that amount. And every time he does, or every time she does, we're paying at the time and a half rate, which is superiorly expensive. Coming into the hurricane season, we've got to bring everybody down to a reasonable amount of comp
So
time.
that's what so to bring him down, that's why you have the person not working.
Correct.
Because him not being.
Because it's burning,
That's
it's
vacation-
burning that
vacation
480,
time.
it's burning that 480 down.
So I guess, and we appreciate where we're at now. We wish we would have started here.
I-
We're trying to get to
Yeah, I'm
the
sorry.
solutions. Now, my question, if we have 10 officers, with your 12-hour new shift thing that you brought, again, we went from Chief Johnson to Chief Solomon. How many officers does it take to work in the city of Prairie View in 1 week? And so we can get this rotation on how does one occur, 480 comp hours? Is this monthly, weekly? This is over a period of time, because if what we're saying is, we approved, again, 2 weeks ago, 3 part-time per people, which is additional people, which means now we have 10. Now, if we say in the city of Prairie View, if we operate in a week, 6 officers, right? Or I don't know, this is what I'm trying to get to.
The budget is 11 officers, full-time and part-time. As far as part-time go, that number you have, you got 10 now, okay. Part-time officers is
So,
2, 3,
so
4.
is that 10 including you or?
No, yeah, it's 11 including him. You got
Right,
5
so we
part-time
have,
officers.
we have 10 right now, including him, without that.
Right, you're short one officer.
So we're short
Total
one.
budget, right.
What, full-time or part-time?
Well, that, I'm not sure, because I have to answer Chief. You have, on the budget, 5 part-time officers, and then you have 5 full-time.
We have 5 full-time officers.
Yeah.
And so in a week's rotation, a week's shift, how many full-time officers are working and how many part-time officers are working? So it's 5 and 5. Because we're trying to see, like, we were intentional, again, we only get the information we get, we're only legislative. We're intentional about making sure we supported the hires that the mayor and the chief brought to us 2 weeks ago. 3 new part-time officers. That gives us a total of 10. If we need one additional, that means we need to come out and say we need an additional full-time officer if we have the money in the budget. And that helps this conversation, but how many officers, part-time versus full-time, officers work in a week cycle? Like, not past in your 12-hour shift setup.
4. It'll cover a whole week.
For full-time, part-time, or mixed? Or just 4 officers, period?
It needs to be at least 4 officers over that week.
And so over a month, using the 4 officers and the shift you're running, all officers are able to, so for the month, we're able to make sure that officers aren't going over in overtime based upon the schedule you have set.
No, they get up to, in a 2-week period,
Uh-huh.
they get 82 hours, and then 2 hours of that, 2+ hours, or 84 total. 2 of those hours are counted as overtime. That has to be compensated for. We get to work, as police officers, we can work an 82-hour week.
And we have officers, I guess I'm
82 hours,
Uh-huh.
and each one of those officers, each pay period makes, or accrues, 2 extra hours.
But,
Yes, sir.
I move that this be a workshop and that we get along with our.
I understand, sir. I'll answer the questions all day long. But, short story long,
Hold on, we got a motion on the floor.
yes, sir.
Councilman Jones moved that your information presentation be in a workshop to council. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Unready, Councilman Wallace?
If I'm not mistaken, we don't have a workshop set for the next meeting, right, beforehand? Because I know we did, so we would be able to have this workshop, at 5 o'clock before the next meeting? Alright, can you, specify that?
Friendly amendment.
I make a friendly amendment to make the workshop at 5 p.m., let's see, June 24th?
I don't know.
You guys got it. It's coming up before that. Y'all need to know.
Okay, Councilman Randall, I'm sorry.
So, Officer Ross is under an emergency appointment, so that'll be approaching his 30 days. So I guess it'll be depending on the action item later on.
So, my unreadiness is that, could we move it up? Because this is an important matter. To have if what he's saying, what dates does anybody have? We can do the 17th, we can do,
Can we do it on Wednesday on top of the budget workshop?
do we have enough to get,
Because the budget workshop is at 5:30. So what if we put like a time frame? Let's say the budget workshop from 5:30 to 6:30, and then start this one at 6:30.
You can't do it this Wednesday. Not enough notice on the Texas.
Oh yeah.
Should have posted.
We do it next Monday?
I'll let you borrow
I can do that on Monday.
What's that date?
17th.
June 17th. Y'all do it at 5 o'clock. Or push it back.
yeah, let's push it back. That 16th is far as that too, but
17th.
Yeah, the next day.
So what time?
6?
6?
6.
I guess.
6 PM on the 17th. Okay, this police department workshop with interim chief Matt Ross
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if you guys want to talk
will
about
be
it.
on Monday, 6 PM, June 17th. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Heard the motion, ready for the questions.
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, and can we also get that report so we can get a copy and take that home with us before you leave?
Now, you mentioned something, I just want to run by council. You mentioned there were some items that you felt you needed to share with the city council in executive session. You mentioned that once or
I
twice.
did, and I think probably some of the stuff you guys probably need to know prior to June 16th, because it does deal with the police department.
All right, that's cool. We could talk
So-
about it.
We'll discuss what it is and whether or not there's authority under the Texas Civil Means Act to have that conversation in closed session. Because I don't know what it is.
Thank you.
Okay. So you'll get with them and,
Yeah, sure.
okay, all right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If I said anything out of order or to offend anybody, by all means, from my charge to my heart, not my brain. Or my brain, not my heart. My bad.
Okay. On item 6, discuss and take action on Mayor Allen's appointment of Andrea Solis as city secretary. Something came to my attention. I'll ask council to carry this over.
Yes, yes, for this to be tabled
Yes,
till,
at least till the next meeting.
Maybe we have to walk.
Some issues with Ms. Solis that need to be followed up on, concerns she had.
All right, and I also want to talk about, like, I think it was a hire in which that we did perfect. I'm not sure.
The attorney?
Yeah, with the attorney, that allowed us to kind of be a part of the process. So the attorney came to the meeting, they talked, some attorneys didn't, choose to talk and talk about their resume. And we got a chance to like have a little dialogue and discussion. I know, Mary, due to your day-to-day services and with the city getting busy, at this time it might have slipped your mind. But going forward, that'd be like perfect, so that way everyone can get buy-in to kind of meet whoever we'll be going forward with, give our suggestions. If you take them, you take them. If not, then cool. But at least with like everybody, I feel a part of the process and just know and be in tune.
Sure. I just want to follow what Councilor Zach says and what our charter says regarding the hiring process. I know the chief, city attorney, things like that are a requirement. This was one that, we finally got the applications in, me, judge, Ms. Johnson vetted them, and council was, let's get a city secretary, let's get a city secretary. So the timing to do those things wasn't there. Councilman Wallace?
Would it be feasible that next meeting that we have, the 3 secretaries come to the meeting so that, just like with the attorneys, we're able to ask questions, that we can ask questions before making a decision, if we make a decision even at that meeting?
I can check with them and see who's amenable to that.
Thank you.
Sure. A motion for Councilman Randall.
I just want to be clear that, we're not trying to circumvent your process of how you hire. We just want to be sure we know the person before, or at least have opportunity to meet, have a conversation with the person before we move forward with your recommendation.
No, I don't have a problem with it at all.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Randall?
I move
Yeah, well, let's put the motion on the floor. Go ahead.
I move that item 6 be tabled until the next city council meeting.
Second.
Okay, and we have another readiness, Councilman Williams?
I also would, I think it would be beneficial for us if we could do that not at a city council meeting. I don't think it's fair to ask these ladies to come and stand up here, not only in front of us, but in front of the community. I don't think that would be fair.
You can do these in closed session. You can do the personnel interview in closed session.
We usually meet them in executive session.
Any other unreadiness? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right? Let the record show it's unanimous.
So,
Yes, the Councilman Jones.
You got something?
on this, Is it gonna read the person's name, or is it gonna read just the position? It should just read the position.
Just the position if you're gonna
So
interview.
if, was that I wanna make sure the motion was for the position, not the name.
Well, it was tabled, and I'll just leave it on the table, and we'll restate it when it comes. When we-
We'll make, we'll
Okay.
make sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. Yes,
Between the
Councilman.
two of us.
I move that we move,
Item 7.
No, well, yeah, I move that we move item 7 to the end of the meeting.
Second.
It's been properly moved that item 7, discuss and consider the approval of the appointment of chief of police and process and procedures related to the appointment be moved to the end of the meeting. You've heard the motion, ready for the questions?
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passed. Item 8, discuss and consider Mayor Allen's appointments to City Charter Commission. Gwen Carter, Ms. Kizzy, Eula Cookie Bennett, Veronica Hargis, Joyce Thornton, Annette Bowdry, Johnny Walker, Alice Johnson, Ada Bennett, Catherine Reed, Maduforo Easy, and Carla Stamps.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Rowland.
Move we not appoint any members to the city council charter, and city council be the board.
Well, I think what you need
That
to
can't
do
be
is.
the motion.
No, that's a compound motion. You need to vote on this, and then you can do another motion.
So, in the last meeting, the
You already
city
did
council
that.
voted so that there wouldn't be a board. So this action item is null and void because there is no charter commission.
City council, yes, correct.
The city charter commission doesn't exist, so we can't appoint anybody to a commission that doesn't exist.
And I'm confused as to the charter. If the mayor makes the appointments, and the mayor did not appoint council, how does that, I'm reading the letter of the charter.
Right.
You can't
The
appoint to a
council is
board that
not
doesn't
acting,
exist.
the council is not acting as a committee. The
Okay.
city council, on its own, can do an agenda item, either as a regular agenda item or as a workshop, and decide on its own to place things on the charter or on the ballot for voting. They're not a committee. They can do that on their own. It doesn't have, it's not a committee.
We can just schedule town hall meetings and where we discuss the charter. and-
As the city council.
Right, and then take the information from the town hall meetings, from a series of town hall meetings, and then we can just put those things on the agenda to move forward. That way it doesn't exclude citizen involvement.
But it does exclude citizens on the city charter commission.
There is no commission.
There is
No, the council voted to have a commission.
No, we voted.
Mr. Mayor?
Had a commission for a couple of years. Yes, sir.
So at the last meeting, council actually voted to rescind the charter committee because there was one there. So we voted to rescind it. So right now there isn't one.
Okay. All right. It's happy.
Well, can you make sure you,
Council.
can we communicate this? Citizens, this is not to circumvent the process. When we host a meeting, people will still be able to come and give input and do everything the same, except for city council, which is in charge of it anyway, has the final say. So again, part of this is we do one engagement, but this was to cut down on confusion, so.
So, just to add to the clarification, the city council doesn't have final, so everything comes down, it's gonna come down to election, to an election. But the city council is just going to facilitate the process, instead of putting a committee together to try to facilitate the process, the city council is gonna facilitate the process.
And I just want the record to be clear that this is in direct contrast to what the city council did when the charter commission was approved or set up before. Each of the city council members and the mayor selected someone to be on the committee. But the will of council, what's your pleasure?
I move that we move on to the agenda, item number 9.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor?
I just moved that we move the agenda to item number 9. We don't, there's no motion.
No, it's no action, because we took action last time.
Okay. Item 9, discuss and take action on the creation of a Sandra Bland Historical Landmark, park, costs, and reports. Councilman Jones and Rowland.
So can I touch on this really quick before you?
Go ahead.
So, just for clarification on item 9, there's nothing within this, item that's new. There's no new action as far as the item takes place. All of this was approved by council action back in 2014. And so this is just the part of that process that was done back in 2014. So there's no new action or any changes to that item that was approved back in 2014.
Councilman. Councilman Joe.
So this past, so this, I guess the past couple months, I've been in contact with the Bland family, and been informed by council and several community members. I was informed that that was citizen property, and moving forward, they may be doing things with those properties. So I came up with, since we have Sandra Bland, well, since it's a purple banner there that says Sandra Bland Park, that we just move the historical landmark down to the property in which has the purple sign. I've been talking to the Waller County Historical Society, which I gave council say on the desk. The second to last page, it says what Ms. Bland family has typed up, what they would like the historical landmark to say. Also, another thing, I understand, I'm sorry, we discussed it. All right, so I understand why citizens would not like to, well, I understand from my point of view, so excuse me.
Please, audience, no
That's,
talking, please, go ahead.
that's fine. But also,
Let's be talking, I will leave.
there's my, at the same time, the street name will be coming down, but at the same time, this was a pivotal moment that happened in America, in our city. And I think that we have an opportunity to paint the narrative as saying that mental health is very important, and as well as police brutality is a very important issue. So the historical landmark will not be saying that the incident in which that took place is saying that Purview has did it. What it's saying is that Purview going forward, we will pay attention to police brutality and mental health awareness and issues of that sort. So as it was stated earlier by citizens, that if you could have a marker on the side of the road to say what took place and how the family would like for Ms. Bland to be remembered, that they didn't see an issue with that. They saw an issue with the street name going forward, staying at Sandra Bland Parkway. And so that's what I'm bringing today, to ask that council approves and move forward on the development of a historical landmark. Because regardless if we like it or not, or if you guys like it or not, Sandra Bland will always be a part of our community, as our community will always be a part of Sandra Bland and her family, regardless if there's not a banner there or anything there for years to come. Their great-grandkids, my grandkids, everyone is going to be talking about a moment in which happened there. People still come by when they visit our beautiful campus, stop there, say a prayer there, and do just different things there. So I just think that that would be of no harm for us to move forward on the development of a historical landmark, and then move forward with a memorial park that not only shows the history of that, what took place that day, but it shows the history of Purview with different memorial sites, with the 14 Farmers family having their own plaque there, just seeing the history painted of Black greatness. Someone said earlier that when you think of Purview, you think of Black Lives Matter. It shows. Well, would it be perfect to show a timeline or some memorial for our citizens and for other people to come to not only see this historical landmark, but to see what the 14 families, to read information on artifacts and different things about that, to even have some of those trees planted out there for shade, for someone to stop by and just see where the city of Prairie View has came from and how much further that we have to grow. That is what this is to show. There's also an application fee, which is about $30 if council chooses to move forward with this historical landmark.
Mr. Mayor, so I just want to touch on 2 points. From day one, and former Mayor Jackson's here, he can attest to that. The street name has always been in lieu of an historical marker. So if you go back and you read the resolution for 2014, it says the name of the street will be changed until a marker is placed in remembrance of, or 5 years, or a 5-year period, whichever comes first. So the marker was always the objective, not necessarily the street name. And I guess you could say the street name has served as that marker until the actual marker is placed. The second thing I want to talk about is we talked about the park. Mr. Jackson, do you remember who it was who made the presentation about the park? So yeah, if you think about it, when we looked at the park, we had, who was it that did it? The architecture building from Prairie University developed a park, and it included all of the history of Prairie within this park. And it's important to understand that recognizing Sandra Bland, and no matter how we try to shake it, her in that situation is always going to be a part of Prairie View history, whether that's something that we like or not. You know, I can go to Washington State and I say I'm from Prairie View, and the first thing out of somebody's mouth is Sandra Bland. And so understand that recognizing her doesn't take away from our ability to recognize the people who have also made great. And we welcome, because those people are there before my time, so we welcome you to bring, hey, this person, their contribution, so we can recognize them as well.
Thank you, Councilman Jones, Councilman Randall, citizens and council. We prepared, in everybody's package should be the presentation from that Councilman Randall referenced from architecture from February, dated February 4th, 2016. Just real quick for citizens, we had several citizens who came to communicate about the street name. And we want to be very clear, we are not engaging in any conversation in reference to Sandra Bland Parkway, which is the street. As Councilman Randall talked about, he talked about the, it's in the packet, talked about, this is a process that started some time ago. Where the purple sign is a property that the city of Prairie View owns. That property was designated as a park. And we're just moving forth in our process because there's a park that needs to happen